19. Sophie Braceau. Making a career in America. A fact often overlooked when considering the career of some of our great singers of today is the fact that they started out to become an instrumentalist rather than a singer. In other words, they become proficient on some instrument before taking up serious study of the voice. In this connection, one thinks of Madame Sembrick, who was both pianist and violinist before becoming known as a singer. It would be interesting to follow up this idea and enumerate the vocalists who have broadened their musicianship through the study of other instruments than their own voices. But this delightful task must be reserved for future leisure. For the present, it can be set down here that Miss Sophie Braceau, probably the youngest star in the constellation of the metropolitan artists, is an accomplished pianist, and intended to make her career with the aid of that instrument instead of with her voice. But we will let the young artist speak for herself. On the occasion in question, she had just returned from a walk, her arms full of rosebuds. "I never can resist flowers," she remarked as she had them placed in a big silver vase. Then she carried the visitor off to her own special rooms, whose windows overlooked an inner garden where one forgot one was in the heart of New York. "Indeed, it is not like New York at all. Rather like Paris," said Miss Braceau, answering my thought. On a chaise longue in this ivory and rose sanctum reposed a big, beautiful doll, preserved from childish days. The singer took it up. "I don't play with it now," she said with a smile, "but I used to." She placed it carefully in a chair, then settled herself to talk. "Yes, I intended to make the piano my instrument and began my studies at the age of 6. Before long it was seen that I had something of a voice, but no one gave it much thought, supposing I was to be a pianist. Indeed, I have the hand of one, holding it up. I don't think, in those early years, I was so very anxious to become a player. I did not love scales, do not now, and would quite as soon have sat at the piano with a book in my lap, while my fingers mechanically did their stunts. But my mother looked after my practice and often sat near me. She required a regular amount of time given to music study each day. I am so grateful that she was strict with me, for my knowledge of piano and its literature is the greatest joy to me now. To my thinking, all children should have piano lessons. The cost is trifling compared to the benefits they receive. They should be made to study, whether they wish to or not. They are not prepared to judge what is good for them, and if they are given this advantage, they will be glad of it later on. In due time, I entered the Institute of Musical Art, taking the full piano course. Arthur Hawkman was my teacher for piano, and I found him an excellent master. He did a great deal for me. In interpretation, in fineness of detail, in artistic finish, I owe him very much. Later, I studied several years with Alexander Lambert. While at work with my piano, it grew more apparent that I had a voice that should be cultivated. So I began. Afterwards, I worked 3 years with Senior Buzzy Pecchia, who started me on an operatic career and finally brought me to the Metropolitan. It was a great ordeal for a young singer, almost a beginner, to start at our greatest opera house. It meant unremitting labor for me. I worked very hard, but I am not afraid of work. Toscanini held sway when I began, and he was a marvelous musician and conductor. Such exactness, such perfection of detail, he required perfection of everyone. He did not at first realize how much of a beginner I was, though I had really learned a large number of roles. He was so strict in every detail that I wept many bitter tears for fear I would not come up to the mark. I knew the music, but had not gained experience through routine. It seems to me every singer should gain this experience in some smaller places before attempting the highest. My advice would be to go and get experience in Europe first. I have never been in Germany, but in Italy and France there are many small opera houses where one may learn routine. Another thing. There is a mistaken notion that one cannot reach any height in opera without pull and great influence. I am sure this is not true. For while a pull may help, one must be able to deliver the goods. If one cannot, all the backing in the world will not make one a success. The singer must have the ability to put it over. Think of the artists who can do it. Farrar, Gluck, Schumann, Hank. There's never any doubt about them. They always win their audiences. What I have done has been accomplished by hard work, without backing of any kind. Really, of what use is backing anyway? The public can judge, or at least it can feel. I know very well that when my chance came to sing Shameless, if I had not been able to do it, no amount of influence would have helped the situation. I had it in my own hand to make or mar my career. I often wonder whether audiences really know anything about what you are trying to do, whether they have any conception of what is right in singing, or whether they are merely swayed by the temperament of the singer. Whether we are or are not to be a musical nation should be a question of deep interest to all music lovers. If we really become a great musical people, it will be largely due to the work of the records. We certainly have wonderful advantages here and are doing a tremendous lot for music. I had an interesting experience recently. It was in a little town in North Carolina where a song recital had never before been given. Can you fancy a place where there had never even been a concert? The people in this little town were busy producing tobacco and had never turned their thought toward music. In the face of the coming concert, what did those people do? They got a program, studied what pieces I had sung on the Victor, got the music of the others, so they had a pretty good idea of what I was going to sing. When I stepped on the platform that night and saw the little upright piano, no other instrument could be secured, and looked into those eager faces, I wondered how they would receive my work. My first number was an aria from Orfeo. When I finished, the demonstration was so deafening I had to wait minutes before I could go on. And so it continued all the evening. How do I work? Very hard, at least 6 hours a day. Of these I actually sing perhaps 3 hours. I begin at 9 and give the first hour to memory work on repertoire. I give very thorough study to my programs, for I must know every note in them, both for voice and piano. I make it a point to know the accompaniments, for in case I am ever left without an accompanist, I can play for myself, and it has a great effect on audiences. They may not know or care whether you can play Beethoven or Chopin, but the fact that you can play while you sing greatly impresses them. In committing a song, I play it over and sing it sufficiently to get a good idea of its construction and meaning. Then I work in detail, learning words and music at the same time, usually. Certain things are very difficult for me, things requiring absolute evenness of passage work or sustained calm. Naturally, I have an excessive temperament. I feel things in a vivid, passionate way. So I need to go very slowly at times. Today I gave several hours to only 3 lines of an aria by Handel, and am not yet satisfied with it. Indeed, can we ever rest satisfied when there is so much to learn and we can always improve? The second hour of my day is given to vocalizes. Of course, there are certain standard things that one must do, but there are others that need not be done every day. I try to vary the work as much as I can. The rest of the day is given to study on repertoire and all the things that belong to it. There is so much more to a singer's art than merely to sing. And it is a sad thing to find that so many singers lack musicianship. They seem to think if they can sing some songs, or even a few operas, that is all there is to it. But one who would become an artist must work most of the time. I am sure Charles Hackett knows the value of work, so does Mabel Garrison and many other Americans. And when you think of it, there are really a brave number of our own singers who are not only making good, but making big names for themselves and winning the success that comes from a union of talent and industry.